In September of 2018, 18-year-old Olivia Morgan disappeared without a trace on a remote hiking trail in the Columbia River Gorge. For 1 year, she was presumed dead, the victim of a fall, a wild animal, or exposure to the brutal Oregon winter. But in October of 2019, police found her alive, hidden in a house, just 15 miles from where she vanished. What investigators discovered about the man who took her, and the secret life Olivia had been hiding from her own family, would turn this case into one of the most disturbing disappearances in Pacific Northwest history. Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe to Seek Stories for more mysterious disappearance cases. On September 15, 2018, a Saturday morning, the sun rose over the Columbia River Gorge with the kind of clarity that makes photographers wake up before dawn. The temperature hovered around 62 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect hiking weather for the Pacific Northwest. For thousands of visitors that weekend, it was a chance to see the famous waterfalls before autumn turned the trails muddy and treacherous. But for 18-year-old Olivia Morgan, this morning marked the beginning of a journey that was supposed to last only 6 hours, but would stretch into a full year of absolute silence. Olivia lived alone in a modest studio apartment on the 3rd floor of the Cedar Complex in southeast Portland. According to her roommate from freshman year, who still kept in touch via text, Olivia was the kind of person who planned everything down to the smallest detail. She kept a color-coded calendar on her phone, meal prepped every Sunday, and never, ever missed a deadline. That Saturday, her plan was simple. Drive 45 minutes east to Eagle Creek Trail, hike to the tunnel section past Mile 5, take photos for her portfolio, and be back in the city by 4 in the afternoon. She had a marketing exam on Monday she needed to study for. At exactly 8:30 in the morning, the security camera at her apartment complex parking garage captured Olivia loading a small navy blue backpack into her silver 2012 Honda Civic. She wore black leggings, a gray hoodie with Portland State University printed across the chest, and worn-in hiking boots that had carried her through dozens of Oregon trails. Her long brown hair was pulled back into a practical ponytail. According to the timestamp, she spent 3 minutes checking her gear. Water bottles, energy bars, a portable phone charger, the professional camera she'd saved up for 6 months to buy. Everything a responsible solo hiker brings. At 9:07, she texted her younger sister Emma, who was 16 at the time and still living with their mother in Salem. The message was brief and typical of their relationship. Heading to Eagle Creek. Signal sucks out there, so don't freak if I don't reply. Love you, bug. Emma responded immediately with 3 heart emojis and a reminder to send photos. That was the last normal exchange Olivia Morgan would have with anyone who loved her. The drive from southeast Portland to the Eagle Creek trailhead takes about 50 minutes if traffic cooperates. Highway 84 runs along the Columbia River, offering views of the water on one side and towering cliffs on the other. Olivia knew this drive well. She'd posted photos from various gorge hikes on her personal Instagram at least a dozen times over the past year. Her account showed a young woman who seemed to have everything figured out. Smiling selfies at Multnomah Falls. Action shots of her balancing on rocks at Punchbowl Falls. Captions about finding peace in nature and quotes about adventure. What her followers didn't know, what even her own family didn't know, was that Olivia's financial situation was far more complicated than her sunny social media presence suggested. Her father had passed away from cancer when she was 14, leaving her mother Karen to raise 2 daughters on a nurse's salary. By the time Olivia started at Portland State, the family was still paying off medical debt. Student loans covered tuition, but living expenses in Portland were brutal. Rent for even a studio apartment ran over $1,000 a month. Textbooks, food, gas. The math simply didn't add up on a part-time barista wage. At 9:53, cameras at the Eagle Creek trailhead entrance captured Olivia's Honda pulling into the gravel parking lot. Even on a Saturday morning, the lot was only half full. The devastating wildfire of 2017 had temporarily closed the trail, and though it had since reopened, many tourists still favored other locations. Olivia parked near the back, under the shade of a massive Douglas fir. She sat in the car for a moment, visible through the windshield, scrolling on her phone. Then she stepped out, adjusted her backpack straps, locked the doors, and walked toward the trailhead information board. The trail ranger on duty that morning, an older man named George Hartwell who'd worked the gorge for 23 years, would later tell investigators he remembered seeing her. She looked confident, he said in his written statement. Not like some of the tourists who show up in flip-flops with no water. She knew what she was doing. He watched her read the safety warnings about staying on marked trails, about the dangers of cliff edges, about keeping noise levels down to avoid disturbing wildlife. She nodded to herself, took one last look at her phone, and then started walking up the path. The first 2 miles of Eagle Creek Trail are relatively gentle. The path winds through dense forest, following the creek as it rushes downhill over moss-covered rocks. In September, the water runs clear and cold, fed by snowmelt from the peaks above. Other hikers that day reported passing a young woman matching Olivia's description. She smiled. She said hello. She stepped aside politely to let faster hikers pass. Everything about her behavior was completely, utterly normal. At 11:27, Olivia sent her last text message to anyone. It went to her roommate from freshman year, Jessica Torres, who was spending the weekend at her parents' house in Eugene. This place is incredible. Worth the drive. Signal cutting out though. Talk later. The message showed as delivered. Jessica sent back a thumbs-up emoji, not knowing that Olivia would never read it. By mile 3, the trail becomes more challenging. The path narrows. Cliff edges appear on the left side, dropping straight down to the creek bed 70 feet below. Metal cables have been bolted into the rock face to give hikers something to hold on to. This is where casual tourists usually turn back. This is where serious hikers keep going. According to the GPS data pulled from Olivia's phone, which was later recovered during the investigation, her last known location was at mile marker 5.2. The timestamp read 12:18 in the afternoon. After that, the phone lost signal completely. This section of the trail passes through what locals call the dead zone. No cell towers, no Wi-Fi, nothing but forest and rock and the sound of water far below. Olivia had planned to reach Tunnel Falls, photograph the way sunlight broke through the mist, and then turn around. Round trip, the hike should have taken about 5 hours including breaks. She told her sister she'd be back in the city by 4. By 5 o'clock, Jessica started texting, asking if Olivia wanted to grab dinner. By 6, Jessica called, straight to voicemail. By 7, Jessica felt the first cold touch of real worry. She called Olivia's mother in Salem. Karen hadn't heard from her daughter since the morning. She called Emma, who read the Eagle Creek text out loud, her voice shaking slightly. They told each other not to panic. Olivia's phone was probably just dead. She probably lost track of time. She'd done that before. By 8:30, as the sun dipped below the hills and darkness settled over the gorge, Karen Morgan made the call she would replay in her mind 1,000 times afterward. She dialed 911 and reported her daughter missing. The dispatcher asked the standard questions. Age, description, last known location. When Karen said Eagle Creek Trail, there was a pause on the line. Then the dispatcher's voice shifted to something more serious. Ma'am, we're going to send a ranger unit out there tonight to check the parking lot. If her car is still there, we'll initiate a search at first light. The trail is not safe to navigate after dark. At 9:15, Ranger George Hartwell returned to the Eagle Creek trailhead with a flashlight and a heavy feeling in his gut. He walked the parking lot slowly, shining his light on license plates. Near the back, under the Douglas fir, sat a silver Honda Civic with Oregon plates. He ran the registration. The vehicle belonged to Olivia Christine Morgan. He looked inside. A gym bag on the back seat. A textbook on the passenger side. An air freshener shaped like a pine tree hanging from the rearview mirror. Everything looked normal, except that the owner of this car had not come back. The search operation launched at 5:45 the next morning, September 16th, with the kind of organized urgency that the Pacific Northwest reserves for missing hikers. The Columbia River Gorge is beautiful, but it is not forgiving. People get lost. People fall. People die in these woods every year, and the window for finding someone alive closes fast. The incident commander, a veteran search and rescue coordinator named Michael Brennan, assembled a team of 40 volunteers, 2 canine units, and a helicopter equipped with thermal imaging cameras. The weather was cooperating. Clear skies, mild temperatures. If Olivia was injured somewhere off-trail, if she was conscious and able to signal for help, conditions were as good as they were going to get. The search dogs started at the trailhead parking lot, sniffing items from Olivia's car to lock onto her scent. Both dogs, a German shepherd named Ranger and a bloodhound named Sadie, immediately pulled their handlers toward the trail entrance. So far, so expected. The dogs followed the scent up the path, past mile 1, past mile 2. At mile 3, where the trail narrows and the cliffs begin, both dogs showed signs of confusion. They circled. They sniffed the air. Ranger sat down and whined, which his handler interpreted as a signal that the scent had been disrupted or contaminated by other hikers. Above, the helicopter made systematic passes over the forest canopy, the thermal camera scanning for any heat signature that might indicate a human body. The technology can detect body heat even through dense tree cover, but it's not foolproof. If someone is unconscious, if their core temperature has dropped, if they're sheltered under rock or heavy brush, the camera might miss them entirely. For 6 hours, the helicopter pilot flew grid patterns while the observer stared at the monitor, looking for that telltale orange-red bloom on the screen. Nothing. On the ground, search teams spread out in a coordinated sweep. They hiked the main trail all the way to Tunnel Falls and beyond, calling Olivia's name until their voices went hoarse. They checked every switchback, every side path, every spot where someone might have stepped off the trail to take a photo or find a private place to rest. Volunteers crawled through sections of dense brush, looking for torn fabric, disturbed soil, anything that might indicate someone had passed through. By late afternoon on day 1, the mood among searchers had shifted from hopeful urgency to grim determination. Michael Brennan gathered his team leaders and reviewed what they knew. Olivia's car was still in the parking lot. Her phone's last GPS ping placed her at mile 5. The dogs had tracked her scent to mile 3 before losing it. There were no witnesses who remembered seeing her past that point. The terrain between mile 3 and mile 5 included cliff sections, narrow passages, and several steep drop-offs into the creek gorge below. The working theory began to take shape. Olivia had likely continued past mile 3, possibly alone since no other hikers reported seeing her in the more remote sections. She may have slipped on loose rock. She may have gotten too close to an edge. Eagle Creek Trail has a history. In 2016, a hiker fell to his death near the Punch Bowl area. In 2015, a woman was seriously injured after losing her footing. The trail is rated as moderate to difficult for a reason. On day 2, search teams focused on the gorge itself. Technical climbers rappelled down the cliff faces, checking ledges and crevices where a body might have come to rest after a fall. It was dangerous, slow work. The rock is loose in places. The drop is severe. More than once, a climber would radio up that they'd found something, only for it to turn out to be a fallen tree or a dead deer. By day 3, the media had picked up the story. Local news stations ran segments about the missing Portland State student. They showed Olivia's photo, the smiling girl with the ponytail and the Portland State hoodie. They interviewed her mother Karen, who stood in front of the cameras with red-rimmed eyes and begged anyone with information to come forward. "She's a good kid," Karen said, her voice breaking. "She's smart. She's careful. Please, if you saw anything, if you know anything, please call the tip line." The tip line received dozens of calls. Hikers who thought they might have seen someone matching Olivia's description. Psychics claiming to have visions. Well-meaning strangers suggesting search locations based on gut feelings. Every lead was followed. Every sighting was checked. None of them led anywhere. On day 5, the search was officially scaled back. The incident commander held a press conference and explained the reality of the situation. They had covered over 20 square miles of terrain. They had deployed every available resource. The chances of finding Olivia alive after 5 days in the wilderness, with temperatures dropping into the 40s Fahrenheit at night, were statistically close to 0. The operation would transition to a recovery mission, with periodic checks of the area but no more active daily searches. Karen Morgan refused to accept it. She returned to Eagle Creek on her own, walking the trail with printed flyers, asking every hiker she passed if they had seen her daughter. Emma came with her on weekends, both of them moving through the forest like ghosts, calling Olivia's name into the trees. The forest did not answer. 3 weeks after the disappearance, on October 7th, a group of kayakers navigating the creek near the base of the cliffs spotted something caught in a tangle of driftwood along the bank. It was a backpack, navy blue, waterlogged and partially shredded, as if it had been battered against rocks for weeks. Inside, searchers found a soggy Portland State notebook, a ruined camera with the lens cracked, and a student ID card with Olivia Morgan's name and photo. The discovery site was roughly half a mile downstream from the Mile 5 area where her phone had last registered. The official theory solidified. Olivia had fallen from the trail, likely into the creek. The current had carried her body downstream. The backpack had snagged on debris, but her body, lighter and more buoyant, had continued on. In the Columbia River system, bodies can travel miles before washing up on a bank or sinking into deep water. Dive teams were deployed. They searched pools and eddies downstream for 3 more days. They found nothing. By late October, the autumn rains had started, raising water levels and reducing visibility to 0. The search was suspended indefinitely. On November 3, 2018, the Multnomah County Medical Examiner's Office issued a presumptive finding. Based on the evidence, the location, and the circumstances, Olivia Morgan was declared legally deceased. Cause of death: accidental fall with drowning. The case file was closed and archived. Karen Morgan held a memorial service at a church in Salem. Over 200 people attended. Friends from high school, classmates from Portland State, professors who remembered Olivia as a diligent student. Jessica Torres gave a eulogy, crying so hard she could barely speak. Emma sat in the front row, staring at a photograph of her sister, unable to process that the person who had texted her heart emojis was gone forever. What none of them knew, what none of them could have possibly imagined, was that Olivia Morgan was not at the bottom of the Columbia River. She was not buried under forest debris. She was 15 miles away in a suburb called Beaverton, in a house on a quiet street where neighbors waved to each other and mowed their lawns and never suspected that behind one of those ordinary doors, a girl was being erased from the world one day at a time. The investigation into Olivia Morgan's disappearance officially went cold in November of 2018. Her case file was transferred to the inactive archives, where it sat alongside hundreds of other unsolved missing persons cases in the Pacific Northwest. To the public, to her family, to everyone who had searched for her, the story was over. But in a small office at Portland Police Bureau's Central Precinct, a young detective named Sarah Reeves could not let it go. Detective Reeves was 28 years old, relatively new to the missing persons unit, and possessed the kind of stubborn curiosity that made her dig into cases long after everyone else had moved on. She'd read Olivia's file 3 times. Something about it bothered her. The pieces fit too neatly. Girl goes hiking. Girl falls. Case closed. It was statistically likely, sure, but statistics didn't explain the feeling in Reeves's gut that they were missing something. In early December, 2 months after Olivia's disappearance, Reeves decided to do what the initial investigation had not done thoroughly enough. She went digital. She obtained a warrant to access Olivia's laptop, which had been sitting in an evidence locker since it was collected from her apartment. IT forensics had already cloned the hard drive, but the original examination had focused only on communications, emails, social media messages, anything that might indicate Olivia was meeting someone or planning to run away. They'd found nothing suspicious. Reeves took a different approach. She didn't just look at what Olivia was saying to people. She looked at what Olivia was doing privately. Browser history, financial records, app installations. It took her 3 days of methodical review before she found it. Olivia's laptop had a bookmarked link to a website Reeves recognized immediately from other cases. OnlyFans, an online platform where content creators could charge subscribers for exclusive photos and videos. Reeves clicked the bookmark. It led to a creator profile under the username Live Outdoors. The profile photo showed Olivia from behind, standing on a mountain overlook, face obscured. The bio read, Pacific Northwest explorer, fitness enthusiast, exclusive content for supporters. Reeves felt her pulse quicken. She called the IT forensic specialist back to her desk. Together, they accessed Olivia's OnlyFans creator dashboard using login credentials saved in her browser's password manager. What they found was staggering. Olivia had been active on the platform for 14 months, since July of 2017. She had over 2,000 subscribers. She posted content 3 to 4 times per week. Photos of herself in athletic wear, workout videos, outdoor shots that walked the line between suggestive and tasteful. Nothing explicitly adult, but clearly designed to appeal to a specific audience. And it had been lucrative. Her account had generated over $48,000 in total earnings. After the platform took its cut, Olivia had netted roughly $33,000. Reeves cross-referenced this with Olivia's bank statements. Monthly deposits, $2,000 to $3,000 at a time. The money had been paying her rent, her tuition, her car insurance, the camera equipment for her marketing projects. She'd been sending money home to Salem. $500 here, $300 there. Always with Venmo notes like, "Love you, Mom," and "For groceries." Detective Reeves sat back in her chair and felt the weight of what she'd discovered. Olivia Morgan had been living a double life. To her family, she was a struggling college student working part-time at a campus coffee shop. To 2,000 strangers online, she was Live Outdoors, a creator they paid to access. And now, Reeves understood why the initial investigation had missed this. Olivia had been careful. She never posted her real name. She never showed her face clearly. She never mentioned Portland State or specific locations in her content. But she had made one mistake. Reeves scrolled through the older posts on Olivia's account from back in early 2018. One photo, posted in March, showed Olivia in workout clothes standing in her apartment. The focus was on her, but in the background, through the window, you could see the Portland skyline. Not just any view, the specific angle of the buildings, the unique profile of the bridges. Reeves recognized it. That was the view from the east side, southeast Portland, possibly the Hawthorne or Belmont area. For most subscribers, this would mean nothing. But for someone local, someone obsessed, this was a breadcrumb. Reeves pulled up the subscriber list. Over 2,000 names. Most were usernames, not real identities. But OnlyFans processed payments through standard methods. Credit cards, PayPal, bank transfers. Every transaction left a trail. Reeves submitted another warrant, this time to OnlyFans Corporate. She requested full transaction records for all subscribers who had tipped Olivia more than $500 in the 6 months before her disappearance. The company complied. The list came back with 23 names. Reeves and her team spent the next 2 weeks running background checks on all 23. Most were out of state. California, New York, Texas. They were eliminated. That left 6 local subscribers. Portland metro area. 4 were married men with no criminal record, likely just customers who'd never met Olivia in person. 2 were more interesting. One was a 19-year-old Portland State student who lived in the same neighborhood as Olivia. Reeves brought him in for an interview. He was nervous, embarrassed, but cooperative. He admitted he'd subscribed to Live Outdoors, said he thought she was attractive, but swore he'd never tried to contact her outside the platform. His alibi for September 15th was solid. He'd been at a family wedding in Bend, 2 hours south. Verified by photos, receipts, and multiple witnesses. That left one name. Ryan Michael Mitchell. Age 32. Home address, 4117 Pinewood Drive, Beaverton, Oregon. Occupation, forklift operator at Amazon Fulfillment Center in Troutdale. According to the transaction records, Ryan Mitchell had subscribed to Live Outdoors in March of 2018. Over the next 6 months, he had tipped Olivia a total of $4,700. He'd sent her messages, hundreds of them. Reeves accessed the message log. Most of Ryan's messages were compliments, telling Olivia she was beautiful, asking about her day, thanking her for her content. Olivia had responded politely, professionally, the way creators do to maintain subscriber relationships. But in August, 1 month before her disappearance, Ryan's messages had changed tone. "I feel like I know you so well now, like we're really connected. Have you ever thought about meeting a subscriber in person? I'd love to take you hiking. I know all the best trails." Olivia had not responded to those messages. The last message Ryan sent was dated September 12, 2018, 3 days before Olivia disappeared. It read, "I'll be at Eagle Creek this weekend. Maybe I'll see you there." Detective Reeves felt ice slide down her spine. On January 8, 2019, 4 months after Olivia Morgan disappeared, Detective Sarah Reeves sat in an unmarked sedan half a block from 4117 Pinewood Drive in Beaverton. Next to her was Detective Mark Chun, a 12-year veteran who specialized in surveillance operations. They'd been sitting here since 5 in the morning. It was now 11:30. They'd watched Ryan Mitchell leave for work at 2:45 in the afternoon the day before, driving a faded blue 2010 Dodge Ram pickup. He'd returned home at 1:07 in the morning. The lights in his house had gone dark by 1:30. "This guy works graveyard shift," Chun said, sipping from a thermos of coffee that had long gone cold. 3 p.m. to midnight at the Amazon warehouse. Comes home, stays inside, doesn't go anywhere else. Reeves nodded, her eyes fixed on the house. It was a single-story ranch-style home, probably built in the 1970s. Beige siding, brown trim, a detached garage that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. The lawn was mowed but joyless. No decorations, no garden, no signs of life beyond basic maintenance. The kind of house you drive past 1,000 times and never notice. "Neighbors say anything useful?" Reeves asked. Chun checked his notes. "Talked to 3 houses on the street yesterday. They all say the same thing. Ryan's quiet, keeps to himself. Inherited the house when his parents died, that was about 8 years ago. Doesn't throw parties. Doesn't have visitors. One neighbor said she tried to introduce herself when she moved in 5 years ago and he barely made eye contact. Another guy said Ryan once helped him jump his car battery but didn't want to chat. Just did it and left. So he's isolated," Reeves said. "Completely." They'd spent weeks building a profile on Ryan Mitchell. He had no criminal record. Not even a speeding ticket. He'd worked at the Amazon warehouse for 6 years. Always showed up on time. Never caused problems. His supervisor described him as reliable but weird. When pressed, the supervisor explained that Ryan never joined coworkers for drinks, never participated in warehouse social events, never talked about his life. He did his job and went home. Financially, Ryan was stable. His parents had left him the house mortgage-free. His warehouse salary was modest but sufficient for a single person with no dependents and no expensive habits. His credit card statements showed regular purchases, groceries, gas, utilities, and monthly subscriptions to multiple adult content platforms. OnlyFans was just one of them, but it was the OnlyFans activity that had flagged him. In addition to the $4,700 in tips to Olivia, Ryan had sent her 312 messages over 6 months. The messages showed a progression. First, they were normal, compliments, encouragement. Then they became more personal. Ryan started talking about himself, about his loneliness, about how Olivia's content made him feel less alone. He started asking questions. "Where do you live? What's your real name? Can we meet?" Olivia, to her credit, had maintained professional boundaries. She thanked him for his support but never answered personal questions. She never agreed to meet. In August, she'd stopped responding entirely. That's when Ryan's messages became darker. "You don't have to ignore me. I've been nothing but good to you. I know you're in Portland. I've been looking. I found your Instagram. You're even more beautiful in real life." That last message had been accompanied by a screenshot. It showed Olivia's personal Instagram account, the one she used under her real name, where she posted photos of her hikes and her life. Ryan had figured out who she was. And then, on September 12th, the message about Eagle Creek. Reeves had obtained a search warrant for Ryan's house, but she wanted to execute it carefully. If Olivia was in there, if she was still alive, a botched raid could turn into a hostage situation or worse. So instead of raiding immediately, Reeves had convinced her lieutenant to authorize a surveillance operation. Watch Ryan. Follow his patterns. Look for any indication that he was holding someone. The surveillance had been running for 2 weeks now. Different teams, different shifts, 24/7 coverage. And what they'd observed was a man who lived like a machine. Work, home, work, home. Grocery delivery once a week. No visitors. No socializing. The only anomaly was the groceries. According to the delivery receipts, which Reeves had subpoenaed from the grocery service, Ryan was ordering food for 2 people. Double the usual quantities. Fresh produce, meat, bread, bottled water. Always bottled water. He's feeding someone, Reeves had said to her lieutenant. Or he's got a hell of an appetite. Today was different. Today, Ryan wasn't scheduled to work. According to his timesheet, which they'd obtained from Amazon HR, he'd requested a personal day. It was the first time in 6 months he'd taken any time off. At 12:15 in the afternoon, the front door of 4117 Pinewood Drive opened. Ryan Mitchell stepped out. He was average height, maybe 5'9", thin build. He wore jeans and a dark green jacket. His brown hair was cut short and neat. He looked in every way like a completely ordinary man. He walked to his truck, got in, and pulled out of the driveway. Chun started the sedan and followed at a safe distance. Ryan drove slowly, obeying every traffic law. He took surface streets, avoiding the highway. After 15 minutes, he pulled into the parking lot of a Walgreens pharmacy. He went inside. Chun parked 3 spots away, and Reeves got out, pulling a baseball cap low over her eyes. She followed Ryan into the store. Inside, Ryan moved through the aisles with the efficiency of someone who knew exactly what he needed. He picked up a package of heavy-duty trash bags, a bottle of bleach, rubber gloves, duct tape. Reeves felt her stomach tighten. She stayed 2 aisles over, pretending to browse shampoo bottles while she watched him through the gaps in the shelves. Ryan paid in cash. He didn't make eye contact with the cashier. He carried the plastic bag to his truck, placed it in the passenger seat, and drove home. Reeves and Chun returned to their surveillance position. Reeves picked up her phone and called her lieutenant. He just bought bleach, trash bags, and duct tape, she said without preamble. We need to move now. There was a pause. Then her lieutenant's voice, calm but firm. Get the tactical team. Execute the warrant. If she's in there, we're running out of time. At 4:23 in the morning on October 12, 2019, a 13-month nightmare ended with the sound of a battering ram hitting a door. The tactical entry team from Portland Police Bureau's Special Emergency Reaction Team had assembled 2 blocks from 4117 Pinewood Drive at 4 o'clock. 12 officers in full gear, ballistic vests, helmets, flashbang grenades, rifles and sidearms. Detective Sarah Reeves stood behind the command vehicle, wearing a Kevlar vest over her jacket, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The plan was simple. Fast entry. Secure the suspect. Clear the house. Find Olivia Morgan if she was there. The element of surprise was critical. If Ryan Mitchell had any warning, if he had time to react, the situation could escalate in a dozen horrifying ways. At 4:20, the team moved into position. 6 officers approached the front door. 4 covered the back. 2 stayed with the vehicles to block any escape attempt. The street was silent. Neighbors were asleep. The only light came from the street lamps and the faint glow of dawn starting to touch the eastern sky. At 4:23, the team leader gave the signal. The battering ram hit the front door just below the handle. The wood splintered. The door flew open. Officers poured inside, shouting commands. Police! Search warrant! Get on the ground! Ryan Mitchell had been asleep in the back bedroom. He stumbled into the hallway, shirtless, wearing only pajama pants, his eyes wide and confused. He raised his hands immediately. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just stood there, blinking in the sudden glare of flashlight beams, as 2 officers grabbed him and forced him face down onto the carpet. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. What is this? Ryan said, his voice high and strained. What did I do? Where is she? Detective Reeves was in the house now, pushing past the entry team, her voice sharp. Where's Olivia Morgan? Ryan's face went blank. Not confused. Not angry. Blank. Like a mask had dropped over his features. He didn't answer. The search team spread through the house. Living room, kitchen, bathroom, 2 bedrooms, a small office. Everything looked disturbingly normal. Furniture from the 90s. Outdated wallpaper. Family photos on the walls. Ryan as a child with his parents. The kitchen was clean. Dishes in the drying rack. A calendar on the refrigerator with work shifts marked in blue pen. Detective Reeves felt panic rising. What if they were wrong? What if Olivia wasn't here? Then Officer Marcus Webb, who'd been checking the hallway, called out, "Detective, basement door." Reeves turned. At the end of the hallway, there was a door she'd missed on first glance. It looked like a closet. Simple wood. No markings. But it had something the other doors in the house didn't have. A heavy-duty deadbolt. On the outside, Reeves approached. The deadbolt was unlocked, likely because Ryan had been home alone and asleep. She pulled the door open. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. A smell hit her immediately. Stale air. Unwashed fabric. Something chemical and harsh. Bleach, maybe. Olivia! Reeves called down the stairs. Olivia Morgan? This is the police. If you're down there, we're here to help you. Silence. Reeves descended the wooden steps, her flashlight cutting through the black. The beam found concrete floor, cinder block walls. And then, in the far corner, it found her. A girl sat on a thin mattress on the floor. She was curled into herself, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around her legs. She wore an oversized gray t-shirt and sweatpants that were too big for her frame. Her hair was tangled and greasy. Her skin was pale, almost gray. When the flashlight hit her face, she flinched and turned away, hiding her eyes. Olivia! Reeves's voice cracked. Olivia Morgan? The girl didn't respond. She pressed herself against the wall, making herself as small as possible. Reeves moved closer, slowly, keeping her voice soft. My name is Sarah. I'm a detective with Portland Police. You're safe now. We're going to get you out of here. The girl finally looked up. Her eyes were hollow, empty. The eyes of someone who had learned not to hope for rescue. She stared at Reeves for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether this was real or another cruel trick. Then, in a voice so quiet Reeves almost didn't hear it, she whispered, Am I allowed to leave? Those 5 words broke something in Reeves. She knelt down next to the mattress, her training telling her not to touch the girl without permission, not to move too fast, not to overwhelm her. Yes, Reeves said, tears blurring her vision. Yes, you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to go home. Olivia Morgan didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just nodded once, slowly, and began to stand. Her movements were stiff, mechanical. When she put weight on her left leg, she winced. Reeves noticed then the red marks around her ankle. Raw skin, scars, the unmistakable pattern of something worn too tight for too long. A metal chain lay coiled on the floor near the mattress. One end was attached to a bolt embedded in the concrete. The other end had an open shackle. Upstairs, paramedics were already arriving. They brought a stretcher, but Olivia refused it. She walked up the basement stairs herself, step by painful step, as if she needed to prove to herself that she could. When she emerged into the hallway, into the light of the house, she stopped and looked around. Her eyes found the front door, standing open, early morning light spilling through. She stared at it like it was a portal to another world. Detective Reeves walked beside her, close but not touching. We're taking you to the hospital, Reeves said gently, just to make sure you're okay. And then we'll call your mom. At the mention of her mother, Olivia's face finally showed emotion. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. My mom, she repeated as if testing the words. Is she okay? She's okay, Reeves said, her throat tight. She's been looking for you. She never stopped looking. Olivia closed her eyes. A single tear ran down her cheek. They led her outside. Neighbors had started to come out of their houses, drawn by the police lights and the commotion. They stood on their lawns in bathrobes and pajamas, staring in shock as Olivia Morgan, the girl who'd been declared dead over a year ago, walked to the ambulance. Ryan Mitchell was already in the back of a police cruiser, his head bowed, his face expressionless. As the ambulance doors closed and Olivia disappeared from view, Ryan looked up for just a moment. He watched the ambulance drive away, and then he looked down again and said nothing. Ryan Mitchell did not speak for the first 48 hours after his arrest. He sat in the interrogation room at Portland Police Bureau, hands cuffed to the table, and stared at the wall. Detectives tried every approach. They asked questions. They presented evidence. They showed him photos of Olivia from before, the smiling girl on hiking trails, and photos from after, the hollow-eyed survivor. Ryan looked at nothing and said nothing. His court-appointed attorney advised him to remain silent. But on the third day, October 15th, something changed. Detective Reeves entered the interrogation room alone, carrying a folder. She sat down across from Ryan and laid a single photograph on the table between them. It was a screenshot from Olivia's OnlyFans account. The photo showed her in workout clothes, standing in her apartment, the Portland skyline visible through the window. "This is how you found her," Reeves said. Not a question. A statement. Ryan looked at the photo. For the first time since his arrest, he spoke. "I didn't mean for it to be like this." Reeves kept her voice neutral. "Tell me what you meant for it to be." And slowly, over the next 6 hours, Ryan Mitchell told his story. He'd discovered Olivia's OnlyFans account in March of 2018, he said. He'd been scrolling through the platform late at night, alone in his house, the way he'd done 100 times before. When he saw her profile, something clicked. She wasn't like the other creators. She seemed real, genuine. She posted photos of hiking trails and forests. She talked about adventure and freedom. Ryan had never been adventurous. He'd never been free. But looking at Olivia's content made him feel like maybe he could be. So he subscribed. He tipped generously. He sent messages. At first, Olivia had responded. Friendly messages. Professional but warm. Ryan convinced himself that they had a connection. That she saw him as more than just a subscriber. When he looked at her photos, he didn't see a stranger. He saw someone who understood him. Then came the photo with the window view. Ryan recognized the Portland skyline. He'd lived in the area his whole life. He studied the photo for hours, zooming in, analyzing the angles. He used Google Maps Street View to match the perspective. Took him 2 weeks, but he found it. The Cedar Apartments. Southeast Portland. He started driving there on his days off. Parking across the street. Waiting. One Saturday afternoon in late June, he saw her. Olivia walked out of the building carrying a yoga mat. She got into a silver Honda Civic. Ryan followed her to a gym. He sat in the parking lot and waited for her to come out. When she did, he followed her home. After that, Ryan followed Olivia everywhere. The grocery store, coffee shops, her classes at Portland State. He learned her schedule. He learned her habits. And the more he watched, the more convinced he became that they were meant to be together. "She just didn't know it yet," Ryan said in the interrogation room, his voice eerily calm. "I needed to show her. I needed to make her see that I could take care of her. That she didn't need to do that stuff online anymore. She could just be with me." In August, Ryan noticed Olivia posting photos from hiking trails. He started following her there too. He learned which trails she preferred. Eagle Creek was one of her favorites. She'd posted photos from there 3 times. On September 12th, Ryan sent Olivia a message on OnlyFans. "I'll be at Eagle Creek this weekend. Maybe I'll see you there." He wasn't being subtle. He was testing her, seeing if she would understand that he knew who she was, that he'd been watching. Olivia didn't respond, but Ryan checked her Instagram. On Friday, September 14th, she posted a photo from a previous hike with the caption, "Can't wait to get back out there this weekend." Ryan knew what that meant. On Saturday morning, September 15th, Ryan called in sick to work. He drove to Eagle Creek and parked his truck on a service road half a mile from the main trailhead. He hiked in through the woods, off-trail, carrying a backpack with supplies. Rope, duct tape, a stun gun he'd ordered online, a syringe and a bottle of crushed sleeping pills dissolved in water. He waited near mile 5, in a section of trail where trees provided cover. When Olivia came around the bend, alone, focused on the path ahead, Ryan stepped out and said hello. She looked up, startled but not scared. He was just another hiker. "Beautiful day," Ryan said, smiling. "Yeah," Olivia replied, nodding politely. She started to walk past him. That's when Ryan moved. He pulled the stun gun from his jacket and pressed it against her side. Olivia convulsed and collapsed. She was conscious but paralyzed. Her eyes were wide with terror. Ryan caught her before she hit the ground. "It's okay," he whispered, his face close to hers. "It's me. From your page. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm taking you somewhere safe." He carried her off the trail, deeper into the woods, to where his truck was hidden. He injected the sedative into her arm. Within minutes, she was unconscious. He loaded her into the truck bed, covered her with a tarp, and drove home. When Olivia woke up, she was in Ryan's basement, chained, trapped. Ryan had prepared the space weeks in advance. Soundproof foam on the walls, a mattress, a bucket for a toilet, bottled water, granola bars, everything she needed to survive. "I gave her everything," Ryan said to Detective Reeves, his eyes distant. "A place to stay, food, water. I kept her safe. I talked to her every day. I told her she didn't have to worry anymore. She didn't have to sell herself online. She could just be here, with me." Reeves felt nausea rising. "She didn't want to be there, Ryan. You kidnapped her." Ryan frowned, as if the word didn't make sense to him. She would have understood eventually. She just needed time. The psychological evaluation conducted by the court would later describe Ryan Mitchell as suffering from severe delusional disorder and attachment pathology. He genuinely believed that what he'd done was an act of love. He'd constructed an entire fantasy in his mind where Olivia would eventually see that he'd rescued her, that they were meant to be together, that this was all part of a story that would end with them happy. Reality, of course, told a different story. The medical examination conducted at Oregon Health and Science University Hospital revealed the physical toll of Olivia Morgan's 13 months in captivity. She weighed 98 pounds, down from 130 before her disappearance. Her body mass index was critically low. She was severely anemic. Her vitamin D levels were almost non-existent. The prolonged lack of sunlight had weakened her bones. She had multiple scars on her ankle from the shackle, bruises on her arms and legs in various stages of healing. A consultation with a dentist revealed 2 cavities that had gone untreated, causing constant pain. But the physical damage was only part of the story. Dr. Nina Patel, the trauma psychologist assigned to Olivia's case, spent hours with her over the course of weeks. Slowly, carefully, Olivia began to share what had happened during that year. She remembered waking up in the basement and not knowing where she was. Her head throbbed from the drugs. Her body ached. When she tried to stand, she felt the pull of the chain on her ankle. Panic set in. She screamed. She pulled at the chain until her ankle bled. She pounded on the door at the top of the stairs until her hands were bruised. No one came. Eventually, Ryan came down. He brought food and water. He smiled at her. He spoke in a soft, gentle voice, as if he were talking to a frightened animal. "You're safe now," he'd said. "I know you're confused, but you'll understand soon. I'm taking care of you." Olivia begged him to let her go. She cried. She screamed. Ryan didn't get angry. He just waited for her to calm down, then left, locking the door behind him. The first weeks were the hardest. Olivia tried everything. She tested the chain, looking for weaknesses. She tried to pick the lock on the shackle with a bobby pin from her hair. She screamed until her voice gave out. Nothing worked. The chain was industrial grade. The lock was solid. The soundproofing meant no one outside could hear her. Ryan visited twice a day. Morning before he left for work. Night when he came home. He brought food. He emptied the bucket. He talked to her about his day, about the weather, about plans he had for them. He acted like they were a couple, like she'd chosen to be there. When Olivia refused to eat, Ryan didn't force her. He simply took the food away and returned hours later with the same meal. "You'll eat when you're hungry enough," he'd said calmly. He was right. After 2 days, hunger won. Olivia tried to reason with him. She explained that her family was looking for her, that the police would find him. Ryan shook his head. "They think you fell off the trail," he said. "They found your backpack in the river. They think you're dead. No one is looking for you anymore, Olivia. It's just us now." The psychological torture was worse than the physical confinement. Ryan showed her articles about her disappearance. News reports about the search being called off. He showed her photos of her mother at her memorial service. He wanted her to understand that her old life was over. "Your family moved on," Ryan said. "But I'm still here. I'll always be here." Olivia tried to escape once. In December of 2018, Ryan had left the basement door slightly ajar after bringing her dinner. She waited until she heard him upstairs, then tried to pick the shackle lock with a bent piece of metal from the mattress frame. Took her 20 minutes, but she got it open. She crept up the stairs. The house was dark. She could see the front door. She ran. She got 3 steps before Ryan appeared from the kitchen and grabbed her. He didn't yell. He didn't hit her. He just dragged her back to the basement, reattached the shackle, and sat on the stairs, staring at her. "That was disappointing," he said quietly. "I thought we were past this." After that, Ryan installed a motion sensor alarm on the stairs. If Olivia tried to leave again, it would alert him immediately. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. Spring to summer. Olivia stopped counting days. Time became meaningless. She existed in a perpetual present, each day identical to the last. Wake up, eat, sleep, wait for Ryan, wait for nothing. She thought about her family constantly. Her mother, her sister Emma. She wondered if they really had moved on, or if they still thought about her. She wondered if anyone remembered her. She thought about escape, but the thought felt hollow. Where would she go? If Ryan was right, if everyone thought she was dead, would anyone believe her? Ryan never physically hurt her in the way Olivia had feared. He didn't assault her. He didn't beat her. But his control was absolute. He decided when she ate, when the lights were on, when she was allowed to shower, which was once a week, in a tiny utility sink in the corner of the basement while he watched to make sure she didn't try anything. He talked about a future where she wouldn't need the chain anymore, where she could move freely around the house, where they could be a real couple. He truly believed this would happen. In September of 2019, as the 1-year mark approached, Olivia felt herself changing. She was forgetting what her mother's voice sounded like. She couldn't remember what fresh air felt like. The person she'd been before, the girl who hiked and took photos and went to college, felt like a character in a story someone had told her once. Dr. Patel would later explain that this was dissociation, a psychological defense mechanism. Olivia's mind was protecting itself by detaching from reality. If she stayed in that basement much longer, Dr. Patel said, the damage might have become permanent. But then, on October 12th, Ryan had made a mistake. He'd taken a personal day from work to do maintenance on the house. He'd gone to the store for supplies, and the surveillance team that had been watching him for weeks finally had enough evidence to act. When the police broke down the door, when Detective Reeves came down the stairs with a flashlight and said Olivia's name, Olivia didn't believe it at first. She thought it was another trick, another test from Ryan. But when they took the shackle off her ankle, when they helped her up the stairs and she saw the open front door and the sky beyond it, something inside her broke open. The world existed. She was allowed to be in it again. The trial of Ryan Mitchell began in March of 2020 and lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Digital records of his obsessive messages to Olivia. Surveillance footage from Eagle Creek showing his truck near the trailhead. Forensic evidence from his basement including Olivia's DNA and fingerprints. Testimony from Olivia herself, delivered in a quiet, steady voice that filled the courtroom with devastating clarity. Ryan's defense attorney tried to argue diminished capacity. Expert witnesses testified about Ryan's delusional disorder, his inability to distinguish between fantasy and reality. The defense claimed that Ryan genuinely believed he was helping Olivia, that he lacked the criminal intent necessary for kidnapping. The jury didn't buy it. After 6 hours of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict on all charges: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault. The judge sentenced Ryan Mitchell to 40 years in state prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, Olivia read a victim impact statement. She stood at the podium, her mother and sister sitting behind her, and spoke directly to Ryan for the first time since her rescue. "You stole a year of my life," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "You took me from my family. You made them believe I was dead. You locked me in a room and tried to erase who I was. You said you loved me, but love doesn't chain people up. Love doesn't take away someone's choices. What you did wasn't love. It was control. It was cruelty. And I will spend the rest of my life recovering from what you did to me." Ryan stared at her from the defense table. His expression was unreadable. When the bailiffs led him away in handcuffs, he didn't look back. The revelation of Olivia's OnlyFans account became public during the trial. News outlets reported it. Social media exploded with opinions. Some people judged her, called her reckless, said she should have known better than to post anything that could identify her location. Others defended her, pointing out that sex work is work, and that no one deserves to be kidnapped regardless of their profession. For Olivia's family, the revelation was painful. Karen Morgan had testified during the trial about the moment Detective Reeves told her what Olivia had been doing to earn money. "I was shocked," Karen said on the witness stand, tears streaming down her face. "But then I realized she was doing it for us. She was trying to help. And I didn't even know. I didn't ask. I just accepted the money and thought she was working a campus job. I should have asked more questions." Emma Morgan, who was 17 by the time of the trial, had a different perspective. "My sister did what she had to do to survive and help our family," Emma said in an interview with a local news station. "She's not ashamed. And neither am I. What happened to her isn't her fault. It's his fault. Only his." Olivia moved back to Salem after her rescue. She withdrew from Portland State. She couldn't go back to the city, to the apartment, to the trails she'd once loved. Everything felt contaminated. She started therapy 3 times a week. She took medication for anxiety and PTSD. She didn't sleep through the night for months. Small things triggered her. The sound of a door locking, the smell of bleach, darkness, basements. She couldn't be alone in a room with the door closed. She couldn't watch movies about kidnappings. She had panic attacks in crowded places. But slowly, with the help of her family and her therapist, Olivia began to rebuild. She got a part-time job at a bookstore in Salem. She started taking online classes, working toward finishing her degree remotely. She adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Scout, who became her constant companion and emotional support. 2 years after her rescue, in October of 2021, Olivia agreed to do a single interview with a journalist from a national publication. She wanted to tell her story on her own terms. "People ask me how I survived," Olivia said in the interview. "And the truth is, I don't know. Some days I didn't think I would. But I held on to this tiny hope that somewhere, my mom and my sister were still thinking about me, that I wasn't forgotten. And that hope kept me alive." When asked about Ryan, Olivia paused for a long time before answering. "I don't forgive him," she said finally. "And I don't think I ever will. But I also don't let him define my life anymore. He took a year from me. I won't let him take the rest." The interviewer asked if Olivia had any message for other women in similar situations, women who might be afraid to report stalkers or obsessive behavior. "Trust your instincts," Olivia said. "If someone makes you uncomfortable, tell someone. Report it. Don't worry about seeming paranoid or overreacting. I ignored warning signs because I didn't want to be dramatic. I wish I hadn't. And to anyone who's missing, anyone being held against their will, I want you to know that people are looking for you. Someone is fighting for you. Don't give up. In October of 2022, exactly 3 years after her rescue, Olivia Morgan stood at the edge of a small lake in Salem and watched the sunrise. Scout sat beside her, his tail wagging gently. The air was cool and fresh. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange. It was the kind of morning she used to photograph for her old Instagram account, back when she was someone else. She still lived with her mother and sister. She was 24 years old now. She'd finished her degree online. She was thinking about grad school, maybe counseling, maybe working with trauma survivors. She hadn't decided yet. She was learning to give herself time. She didn't hike anymore. Not on remote trails. Not alone. But she'd started taking walks in the city parks. Short ones at first. Then longer. She was reclaiming open spaces slowly. On her terms. Her mother had retired from nursing and now volunteered at a nonprofit that helped families of missing persons. Emma was in college now, studying criminal justice. She wanted to be a detective like Sarah Reeves, the woman who'd found her sister. Detective Reeves still called Olivia every few months to check in. They'd formed an unexpected bond. Reeves had been promoted to sergeant. She'd started a task force focused on online predators and digital stalking. Olivia had helped with the training, sharing her story with law enforcement, teaching them what to look for. Ryan Mitchell was in prison. Olivia knew that. She didn't think about him often, but when she did, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, pity. Mostly, she felt nothing. He was part of her past and she was building a future. Olivia pulled out her phone and took a photo of the sunrise. She looked at it for a moment, then posted it to her private Instagram, the one only her family and close friends could see. The caption read, "Day 1095 of freedom. Still grateful for every single one." She put the phone away, scratched Scout behind the ears, and started walking home. The world was big and complicated and sometimes terrifying, but it was hers again, and she was learning step by step how to live in it. Thanks for watching until the end. It really means a lot. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what stood out to you most. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Seek Stories and hit the bell so you never miss the next mystery. See you soon.